Hello, just a quick add-on before we start, because I've got some information about the TV we're looking at today. The guy that brought it in admitted to me that he'd got this from, well, I think he said a skip, but I think he may have meant a recycling centre. And there's a couple of guys, he tried to bring another TV to me today, and I suddenly realised that there's something going on here, and nothing wrong with that, but they're just taking them from recycling centres, big screen TVs that are faulty, and the idea is they're going to give them to engineers to fix and try and make some money on them. Well, as we all know, it's not as easy as that. And I wanted to mention that because I'm a little out of my depth with OLEDs. You may have known in the past that I'm not a big fan of them. I've repaired half a dozen. I had one that was successful, repaired a power supply on one. It was screen failures on all the others. And the one that had a power supply failure that I repaired failed the next month with a screen problem. So I'm not a big fan of them. Anyway, I do charge, I can't remember if it's 30 or 35 quid for an inspection fee. I said to look at this, because A, it's a 65 inch, which is 10 inches bigger than I like it, mother. And also it's an OLED. So I was rather hoping the 35 quid might put them off, but it didn't. And it's here. Even with the big camera at the top, there's not much that you can see. This is a Panasonic 65 inch. I don't usually do 65 inches. This happened accidentally. It is a Panasonic TX65 FX 750B. Well, you know that because you can flip and see it. But it's an OLED. And it's an OLED with cobwebs. Yeah. This got dropped off last night or the night before. It's not in great condition, and the person that now owns it, somebody's been given this free of charge, and all they've done is ask around, does anybody fix TVs? And they're thinking, I'll get it fixed for a few quid, and then I can use it. But as we all know with OLEDs, A, it's never going to be a few quid, but the screens just normally die on OLEDs. But let's see, I'm going to plug it in and we'll see what happens. And then we'll go testing some voltages. Right, switching on now. I heard a click. I'm sure I did. There's nothing on the standby light. Let me disconnect. Plug in again and listen. The standby light is here, but it's not doing anything. Thought I could see a dim green light then, but it's just a reflection. So we've got some screws around the sides, some here, no screws this side, some screws here, a big screw there for the stand. We have some screws on the base as well. So let me just get busy, take some screws out and see where we get. Screws out. Back panel's going to lift and clip, I would think. Just have a look to make sure. Yeah, usually a tap up, both sides and off. I say usually, I've never worked on one of these before in my life. Now normally, if this genuine, I'm just going to move that camera up a bit so you can see, because it's only fair, seeing as you've come along to the party, that you can see a bit more. There you go. I'm surprised the camera can fit it all in. Normally, if it is a lightning strike, it goes and affects the main board. I will test some fuses on the main board, but I also want to test, well, we can test diodes on here, we can test a few things just in case there was a mains overload. Test the board for any shorts, get the multimeter out, just have a bit of fun with it. I'm not expecting miracles with these because I don't have much luck with OLEDs. That doesn't mean you should just dismiss every single one of them, and I won't. I'll put the multimeter there, maybe you can see it at that. Yeah, we'll just do fuse first. So the fuse is fine, let's just go and test a few FETs. Probably would be a good idea at the moment to see if there's any voltage in the main caps here. Here they are, 450. What's it reading, mother? Oops, almost slipped and shorted it. Oh, it's 190, so it did take the voltage. But it's going down. Now, I can't see because it's so big. What tends to happen if it is a proper lightning strike, these caps will disappear. They will bulge. But I don't see any sign of any bulging caps. Not bulging because of they're weak and tired, bulging because they got thousands and thousands of volts instead of 450. But I'm not seeing that, and that is behaving as it should. The bridge rectifier is obviously going to be okay. What about these little blue caps? Any of those gone south of the border, mate? No. Because if they had gone south of the border, the fuse would have gone south of the border as well. So what voltages have we got? Does it say? There's a 16 volt test point there. Well, there's nothing else. There's nothing else. Let's plug back in. I just want to hear if there's a click again. Sure, I heard it first time. I heard something, but it's not a relay click. I mean, obviously, we've got power back to these caps now, I would have thought. Yeah. Does that say 404? It does. I've got the caps the wrong way around. It says -4. So they're fine. So I just want to test. Let's stick that in there. Is that going to be in your way? Let's just have a look what we've got on these. Yeah, it's always going to be in your way. Shift out the way. Nothing on that one. Nothing on that one. There's got to be a 5 or a 12. Well, there's supposed to be 16 on this cap here. Ooh. I got a bad ground? Yes. So there's 17. So we are getting some voltage out. Let's have a look if we're getting anything else out. No. I would expect to see a 3.3 or a 5 under 12. And a 6.4, of course. There's always a 6.4. It's the most common voltage in the world. 6.4. Right, let's just unplug the feed I'll do it from the power board first, but we'll disconnect the main board just in case any voltages come up, because as I say, if it is proper lightning strike, it's the main board that takes it. So let's just go back to these voltages. Let's see what the 16 is now saying. Well, 17 as it was. It's not a great ground, that is it, but yeah, 17. Maybe that ground was my problem before. No, still 644. Stupid voltage. So there's voltage on the board, but the main board is not. I don't think the main board is alive. It's alive! I don't think it's alive to tell this power board to... Ooh, now what's that? 3.9? Is that my 5 volts? No. I say my 5 volts. I don't really want it. Right, okay, I don't think... I wish there were more test points on here. See, with this being an OLED, it's different to any LED TV. There is a separate LED voltage, which is not here at the moment, but it wouldn't be because the main board needs to tell it to turn on. And the main board is supposed to be getting I'll plug it back in, but the main board is supposed to be getting a 12 volts. And it isn't. There's a test point for the 12 volts. What's it saying? It's got that 6.4. So you know what's going to happen with this TV? If I can't fix it, or if it's not fixable, there is a difference. It's going to just be left here. Because the customer drove about 20 or 30 miles to bring it, and he's not going to want to come and collect it. He was given it. I would have expected to see more voltages on that power supply. but we're not. Fluctuating, is that a 3.6? Yeah. I couldn't find a main board for this. I did have a quick look earlier because I suspected it would be a main board. I'm still not convinced. I'm still not 100% it's the main board, but it's either the main board or the screen. Right. See, that says standby 5 volts and it's giving us better ground. Giving us over 6. It's a bit high. The TV just turned on. I was holding the power button down and something definitely happened. Right, going to disconnect the screen, or at least disconnect the T-cons. No. Maybe I'm hearing things, but I don't think I am. So if I had to diagnose, definitely the main board, it's got its 5 volt, but it's not turning on. I'm surprised there's not a 12 volt on the board. But there's nothing. There's a 16 volt and there's a 6.4. I'm going to check on the other side of the board, let that power go down, and then see. There's no 12 volts getting to the board. And so the rest of the power supply won't turn on. But the power supply needs to give it the 12 volt first. We've got the 5 volts, but that's not going to be enough. How are these caps doing? Yeah. Where's my drainer? Oh, it's up there and I can't get to it. All right. I'm going to have to do a bit more research for this, because there should be another voltage coming out of this power supply. A 16 volt and a well, the 16 volt is on the power supply, but it's not coming over to the main board. And the 12 volt test point on the main board is not there. The 5 volts is, and that's not enough for this. Seems to be a steady 5 volt there coming from the power supply on that one and that one and possibly that one. Now there is a chance that this board just needs 5 volts to kick off. I don't think so. And if it is getting the 5 volts, we should have a standby light, but we're not. Can you turn the standby lights off in the menu? I don't think you can on these, no. So bearing in mind we've got 5 volts. Sorry, that's, yeah, 5 volts, almost 6. I think there should be another voltage, at least another voltage coming out, but I'm going to have to check this schematic and see what should be coming out of this power supply. Maybe the main board works on 5 volts and then turns the rest on. I'm not convinced. I need to find out more. So I need to get a schematic for what is the power supply. Is a TNPA 6710 version 1. TNPA 6710 version 1. Need a power supply for that. Sorry, need a schematic for that power supply. At the moment it's confusing me because there's only 5 volts coming out the power supply. I would expect to see, well, there's 3 times 5 volts coming out the power supply, but I would expect to see a 12 volts and maybe a bit more. But I'll have to get a schematic and see. Maybe 5 volts is enough. But at the moment, I don't know. It could be a problem with the power supply. Still could be the main board, and of course it still could be the screen. the TV's not been terribly well looked after. When the guy dropped it off, he did say there are some marks on the screen, and it's an OLED. Hey. So the jury's still out, unfortunately. Just basic basic diagnostics on this is a bit difficult. Until, if I find out the power supply should be chucking out a 12 and a 24, and it's not, then it could be that. But I'm not convinced, and I do want to take the power supply out just to have a look underneath, just to see if there's any diodes on the back that may have gone out. So at the moment I still don't know. There is one board on eBay. It was £100, it's now £70. I still don't think it's worth the gamble. It still could be a screen issue. The only other way, I certainly wouldn't want to pay that sort of money to test this. The only other way is to buy the board from a 49-inch. Now, it's a different screen. We've done this before on other TVs. The board for the 49-inch is pennies. Let's have a look. Did I see one? There's one for £9. I'm sure there's one for £5. Yeah, look. So this is the board for the 49-inch version. It could give us a standby light and let us know that it's a main board, and then, but you still don't know if the screen's going to be good enough. I don't think it's worth pursuing anymore. I am intrigued to find out. I can't find any information on that power supply. Any information on the power supply. There are plenty of power supplies for sale and they're quite cheap. But I can't find any information on that darn power supply, which is a bit of a pain in the backside. There's no schematics available unless you want to pay for them, and I don't. It's the pains of having an OLED. I am suspicious of the power supply. Just a 5-volt coming out just doesn't seem right to me, but doesn't mean that it is faulty until I can find a schematic. If you know, let me know. If you don't, don't. But in the meantime, we'll put this back together. There's a chance it needs a power supply and a main board. There's a chance that the power supply and the main board are absolutely fine and the screen has gone. Remember, these TVs won't do anything without a working screen, as we've seen with the LGs. They are not your friend. They're not fun to diagnose like they should be, you know. And TVs should be fun to diagnose. And unfortunately, these little buggers aren't. Anyway, I've spent enough time on this. If you've dealt with any of these before on the power supply, is it just 5 volts coming out? Let me know. I'm suspicious of that. I am suspicious of that. Very suspicious. I'm a suspicious person. Anyway, I've lost my mouse now. Oh, it's hiding under there. So that's as far as I can go on this one, really. Not convinced about anything. It still could be a dead panel. It could be both boards that are dead. It could be just that 12 volts that's missing on the power supply. I need to do a bit more research, which I will. I don't just run away from these things. I will try and do a little bit more, but to the best of my knowledge, it still could be a screen issue. And I don't want to waste too much time on it, obviously. But thank you very much for watching. Let me know if you know anything about anything. Until then, goodbye.